For the second time in as many weeks, government buses were off the road as drivers discussed their latest move in the fight against State Transit's new medical assessment. But the union's push for all of its 350 members to refuse to take the exam because it's too intrusive was dealt a blow. 6 drivers had complied with State Transit's demand that the completed assessment be submitted to prove their fitness to be behind the wheel. When 4 union members decided they wanted their medical assessments returned, the 200 attending the meeting marched around and packed into the office of the Acting General Manager, Richard Firewood.
We had a bit of a discussion and the 4 members were given, either given back their forms or given undertakings that when they'd arrived from the doctors they would be given back to those members.
David Holbert was one of the 4 drivers who asked for his assessment to be returned.
I felt as though I was scabbing on my workmates for a start, and I was trying to work out ways of hiding it, but I just couldn't hide it. Just felt so strongly and so bad about it, I had to stand up in front of everyone and tell them.
Newcastle Bus's Richard Firewood won't say how many completed assessments he's received.
The number who've had it is irrelevant to the issue. The issue is the medical standard that we wish to introduce into the authority.
The drivers say they're not giving in either. Their union has prepared a 7-point resolution that it says is designed to protect the drivers from unnecessary prying. Mr Winwood says if State Transit doesn't satisfy the points raised in the resolution, there will be a 24-hour strike by all Newcastle and Sydney drivers next Thursday.
The Premier wasted no time swinging into election mode during his tour of the disputed seat of Maitland. Mr Greiner admits he's more worried about the appeal in the entrance, but he appeared to be taking no chances.
I notice the Labor Party's been honking and hooting up and down the main street every second or third day, so it's pretty obvious who's playing politics.
The Premier even found a spare coin for the local hospital appeal, but not all health workers would be so easily satisfied. Scores of protesters gathered outside the Talara Bowling Club, and the Greiner charisma didn't stand a chance. Angry TAFE teachers confronted the Premier inside. He was finally allowed to address the small crowd who took up his invitation to a formal afternoon tea and was quick to suggest the protesters had been wasting their time.
The reality is that where you've got a limited amount of resources, it's the government's responsibility to see that they're spent as well as possible.
Lakes opened the scoring and it was a brilliant backline move. Hibberd to Walsh onto Mulligan chiming in, and his pass found Botham out on the left flank and he had too much pace for the opposition. Just before half-time, Lakes gave away a penalty and Paul Shealy got the Cheetahs on the board. 4-2 to Lakes at the break. The second half was all defence until Hibberd again combined with Walsh, who threw a magnificent pass to Brian Quinton, and although he did his best to try and mess it up, the former Knights flanker fell over the line for his 19th 4-pointer of the year. But back came the Tars, and it was grand final hero Mark Hanlon who provided the spark. Hanlon crashed through some ordinary Lakes defence and charged up over the halfway. Conlon set about the chase, but the wily Hanlon had too much petrol in the tank, and with Shealy's conversion, it was 8-all. Then sensation. Waratah halfback Glenn Saxby was penalised for a high tackle, and Peter Walsh calmly took the penalty. 10-8 in favour of Lakes, and a few minutes later Walsh took a shot for goal after the Tars were pinged for offside. Final score, Lakes United 12, Waratah 8. Around 40 teams from all over New South Wales are competing in 8 divisions for the coveted New South Wales country titles, the winners of which will go on to the state championships in Sydney. Newcastle clubs Lambton and Maitland had good days, with the Lambton club winning all 3 of their matches against Maitland, Bathurst and the Leisure Coast respectively. In that exciting clash at Lambton, Maitland were able to beat Armidale, but it wasn't until the last over that they grabbed the win. It was 94 runs all, but the Armidale bowler allowed David Ford and Ken Mansfield to take control, and Maitland ran out the winners 109.94. The final is at 3:30 tomorrow. Illawarra and the Falcons would rather forget season 1991, but last night turned on a great show as intense rivals should. Fairs was brilliant for the Hawks, and Michael Johnson in his 250th NBL game was throwing his body around like a 20-year-old. The Falcons led by 3 at half-time, but Fairs put the Hawks in front. But right on the hooter, Al Green re-grabbed the lead with the shot of the night. Hubbard was a star for the Hawks, and he soon had them back on track. The Falcons lost playmaker Al Green with a cork thigh, and the game was up for grabs as he lay in agony on the sidelines. With only a minute remaining, Dean McDonald hit a long bomb for the Hawks. And Rod Johnson went to the line to give the Hawks the lead by a point after a foul by the Falcons. Johnson missed his second, and then pandemonium broke out with 6 seconds left on the clock. Jason Morris is a student at Wallsend High School and captains his school's lawn bowls team. A year ago he joined the senior Wallsend club, and his rise to prominence has been dramatic. Today Jason met Gordon Dransfield in the final of the minor singles championship, and it turned into a real classic. Giving away many years to his opponent, Jason bowled like a veteran, and Gordon had to call on all his guile and cunning to stay in touch. At the 29th end it was all tied up at 26 shots apiece, and then the turning point. On the 33rd end of the absorbing contest, youngster Jason Morris grabbed a 4, and he was declared the winner 31 shots to 27, the first of what promises to be many senior titles. At the West Wallsend indoor swimming pool, around 100 juniors from all over the district were being appraised by one of the best coaches in the business, Neil Ryan. The State Director of Coaching, Neil has high praise for the talent of both swimmers and coaches of the area.
I'm very impressed with the talent that we've got here, particularly as we've got an age group probably from about six years upwards, and this particular area, the Northern Districts, has traditionally been a strong swimming area, and I see no reason why with the talented coaches that we have up here that won't continue in the future. Let's hope that we get some future Sonia Grays and the likes of Peter Coughlin that have come from this area previously.
This is the state's second largest rail modelers exhibition. In previous years, around 6,000 people have walked through the doors. With 15 exhibitions based on railways from around the world, there is enough action to enthrall a young audience for hours. But it's not only the young who enjoy rail modelling. Most of the exhibitors here are adults who have devoted countless hours and dollars to their hobby.
They can take anything from 6 months to 6 years. Ours has been getting built for 5 years and we're not finished.
Police divers combed the bottom of Throsby Creek this morning, hoping to find anything which would help local detectives in their investigations into the death of Stephen Smith. Police say a number of items which Smith should have been carrying were not on the body when it was pulled from the water on Thursday. These include a Walkman with headphones and a man's wallet. Also missing was a dark-coloured vinyl jacket, but police believe they may have located that and are carrying out tests to confirm it did belong to Smith. The results of the post-mortem examination should be completed sometime this week and should confirm whether Smith was murdered or accidentally killed.
Now, 10 seconds left on the hooter. Has he got space? Pushes on the glass. Yes! Troy Trevelyan makes it. 5 seconds left. Bears, it's not over yet. He throws it up from a long way, and the Falcons have won. In all the euphoria, it seemed only Tom Weisman and Dennis Kibble were watching Patrick Fair's fire up.
It looked like it was going in, and I thought, well, if we lose this now after hitting the game winner, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to put out the white flag or... but it looked, we were right behind the shot. It looked like it was going in, and really it's only the pace of the shot that made it miss. It hit in the square, and it could easily have gone in.
And for the hero of the night, new boy Troy Trevelyan, the game plan worked to perfection, even if it did leave the crowd with their hearts on their sleeves.
I just tried to run the play that Coach Weisman called with a quick 2. It was set up for Michael Johnson. It opened up, and I just took the shot, and I was happy it went in.
And that is the aspect that Coach Weisman was most pleased with on Saturday night, the much improved discipline by the Falcons.
The happiest that I was, besides winning in the ball game, is that we actually have shown now that we can play as a team. We can run the plays effectively. The play that we scored on in the end was a set play that we had people in the right spots for, and the fact that we got control of the game tempo and we didn't play to their run and gun style that they wanted desperately to get us into.
With that win over the Hawks, the Falcons can look forward to the remainder of the season with renewed optimism.
It makes things a little bit happier. We got to get the next one now and the next one after that, and then we got to go on the road and we got to start winning games instead of going back into a losing mode. But certainly turning the corner was, even though it was just by 1 point, we'll take it, and it's on with the rest of the season now.
The region's traffic commanders met at Belmont today to work out the logistics of their own demise. In the upcoming months, the traffic specialists will become a thing of the past. Highway patrol units will be decentralised, their commanders sent back to general duties.
I'm quite satisfied that they would be disappointed. It's something that they've worked at most of their working life within the police and have become very, very expert.
That expertise has seen the region's road toll drop dramatically in recent years. In 1988, 308 fatalities were reported along the coastal strip between North Sydney and Tweed Heads. A steady decline sees police now hoping to halve that figure this year. The system is obviously not broken, but it's still being fixed.
All it is just a change of the people in charge, and I'll be requiring the patrol commanders to be doing just as good a job and to continue the downward trend.
General duties officers will also be asked to give more assistance to the highway patrol, and that can only mean more tickets being written than ever before.
All I want to do is increase that productivity and increase the visibility of police so that we can continue to reduce the death toll on our Pacific Highway.
What began as a crisis meeting of the Hunter Region Helicopter Rescue Services Board this morning ended just before 11 with the sacking of its marketing manager of 14 years, John Skeen. Mr. Skeen had been sacked for what the board called willful misconduct. But the shock of the sacking was shadowed by Mr. Skeen's revelations that the region's rescue helicopter no longer belonged to the people of the Hunter.
Our rescue helicopter is indeed mortgaged. It is mortgaged right at this moment, and I can also say that moves to have that mortgage lifted only took place last Friday when this board became aware that it was one of my major concerns.
After being shown a bill of sale for the helicopter created on the 15th of January this year, the board's chairman, Scott Derwin, admitted the $2.2 million Angel One had been mortgaged to provide funds for services in Sydney and Lismore.
The bank has rewritten securities earlier this year to take account of a funding requirement for SLSA helicopters. SLSA helicopters needed a funding arrangement through the bank to enable it to finance the acquisition of spare parts, which, as I've indicated before, was worth something like $6 to $8 million.
Mr Derwin said the funds obtained through the mortgage helped keep the Hunter service, as well as those in other areas, in the air.
The Hunter's share of that overall liability was somewhere in the extent of $3 million that it owed for its part of the spare parts.
But he admitted that if there had been a default on payments in other regions, the bank could have seized the Hunter's rescue chopper.
The Hunter could have lost its helicopter if there were any defaulting of payments, is that correct?
Oh, perhaps it's theoretically possible. I mean, the company as a whole has assets of probably $10 to $12 million and very small borrowing facilities, and I think the chances of that would be remote.
Mr Derwin said the mortgage on the helicopter is currently being discharged because of community concern. But Mr Skeen said what was also of grave concern was the transfer of control of the Hunter Services assets to a Sydney-based company of the Surf Life Saving Association called SLSA Helicopters Proprietary Limited. Mr Skeen asserted that those assets included the Dolphin helicopter, all fundraising income received from the community, sponsorship income and buildings, plant, equipment and a new hangar.
When all of our fundraising income that's received in the helicopter base, which is gathered from our community, is receipted by the Hunter Region SLSA Helicopter Rescue Service but does not enter the bank account of the Hunter Region SLSA Helicopter Rescue Service, it is all transferred directly into one fund in Sydney.
But Mr Derwin said all funds were sent to Sydney to facilitate administration only. Any funds and assets obtained in the Hunter were spent in the Hunter.
And certainly any monies raised here remain credited to the local company, the same as in Lismore.
Mr Skeen has called for the resignation of the board and for all this region's rescue helicopter funds and assets to be returned to the Hunter Services control. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The activity outside the Tower Cinemas resembled a real-life drama with local firefighters, past and present, helping to set the scene for the gala opening. The main action, though, will be on the big screen when 600 invited guests are treated to the latest Universal Studios release. Featuring Kurt Russell, William Baldwin and Robert De Niro, Backdraft is a heroic tale of brothers working in a risky business. Director Ron Howard creates an emotional inferno against a backdrop of spectacular action. Backdraft opens to the public tomorrow.
Action!
There should have a little blue diary. Oh, that's it. You going to take them both?
This 100-page document contains the first major changes proposed for the Local Government Act since its inception in 1919. The reforms range from constitutional to regulatory change. They include the development of a corporate structure for councils, with each employing a general manager responsible for day-to-day operations, the introduction of freedom of information requirements identical to those at state government level, and provisions for resource sharing so councils can pool facilities. Newcastle Lord Mayor John McNaughton has welcomed the reform package.
I looked at it and I thought, I'm pretty relaxed about the whole lot of them, because we are already a proactive council. We've got excellent management systems in place. We have good public accountability and public accessibility, so that there's nothing really that concerns us that I could see.
But there's also something for the voter, the opportunity for change by referendum. Under the reforms, a referendum may be initiated by the council or the community on presentation of a petition signed by 10% of voters. The initiating party must pay the cost. Alderman McNaughton believes it will give more people a say in decision making.
If there is a very, very parochial issue, it allows everybody in the city to have a say about what happens, not only the people who are located right on that particular problem.
Firemen stood by helplessly as the tanker was engulfed in flames. Shell driver Stephen Lavelle was heading north 15 kilometres out of Bulahdelah when he lost control of his vehicle going into a corner. The truck veered onto the wrong side of the road and slammed into a bank. Police are still trying to find the cause of the smash.
There's further inquiries being carried out as to see whether there was any mechanical fault in the truck itself.
Lavelle, a driver with 17 years' experience, clambered out of the side window of the cabin, dazed but unhurt.
I'd rate him as a very, very lucky guy. It's not too often that guys actually walk away from something like this.
The flames torched the roadside embankments. Fuelled by the thousands of litres of super petrol, rivers of fire ran down drains, setting bush alight 100 metres away. The Pacific Highway was blocked for 2 hours. This morning, all that remained was ash. The chassis towed away for scrap, outbreaks of fire still smouldering. The winding stretch of highway over O'Sullivan's Gap is well known to truckies as a danger zone. And this smash is just another statistic in a tragic list of accidents. Last July, a truck carrying a load of oil crashed on the same corner. In October, a young child was killed after a truck carrying chemicals collided with 2 oncoming cars. Despite a public outcry over the poor state of the Pacific Highway, police say all motorists should be slowing down, especially on O'Sullivan's Gap.
People should be aware of their surroundings and just drive according to the conditions.